Hi guys, I'm putting together a little video on how I make my underwater Refugium or Algae LEDs. To start with, you need to make your strip. This is just a standard LED, all wired in series. These are 660 nanometer deep red LEDs. I get them in like 50 at a time on eBay for about 20 bucks. And then depending on how many LEDs you're going to run, and more specifically your power supply, so here I got a Cree LED power supply, is going to dictate the number of LEDs you have based off forward voltage and current available from your driver. So I got one I'm about to make here that's got 10 LEDs in it. The next one I'm making has got 18 LEDs because it's got a bigger driver. Just depends on what you're going to do with it and what you have available to power it with. Depends on the LEDs. Once you figure that out, I just solder these together with a regular old soldering gun and a spool of 22 gauge wire. And then once I get them all put together, I put this shrink wrap on it and run that up far enough that this end will be completely encased, and then the other end won't get in the water. Hopefully this extra barrier will keep some of the water from egressing into the lights. Once you get that all done, then I put it in. This is just a piece of PVC pipe, depending on how many and the size, length, whatever. This I think is 1-inch pipe, and then I ripped it in half on a table saw. And then there's a piece down underneath here, which I'll talk about more in a second. And then I put the LEDs face down so that when this is in the sump, the top of this is going to be flat once I finish putting a casting acrylic on it. And so I'll flip it upside down, and that way it'll lay flat on the bottom of the sump and will project the light. What is currently down will be pointing up into the algae to help the algae grow faster. So I use a little bit of gel super glue to hold these down. What you don't want to have is you don't want anything sticking out. Like the acrylic doesn't really stick to the PVC, that's why I use the PVC. And if one of the LEDs is touching the PVC, you'll have a little bit of a gap there, and that's where water will egress. If any water gets into any of this at all, the whole thing will rust and corrode pretty quickly. So you got to make real careful to be sure that all of it gets completely encased in either shrink wrap or in this casting acrylic. So I'm about to cast this one, and this is what I use, is this stuff here. I got it from like Hobby Lobby or something like that. Amazon maybe, I forget. It's just 2-part clear casting acrylic. Mix it in these little cups, put it in this cup, and then pour it in over the top of this. Again, to make sure that it's all completely covered. And then a little bit of excess I have, I'll put in this one here, and this will be the start of my next light. So I'll put that in there, and then this next one here has already been finished, so it's dry. But it just ends up like that, and then this is the piece you get here. So that'll be that's the base of the next light, and that way all the LEDs you can glue to here. You don't have to worry about them protruding through the bottom, and that gives you 2 pieces. I got this piece of plywood here. I just drilled a couple holes in, and it's a piece of scrap wood so that these don't rock. It just supports it so that the casting acrylic will level out, and so if you got a little bit chipped one way or the other, it'll pour off the side and give you a chance to, if you need to elevate this, you can shim it up a little bit so that it lays flat and get your LEDs completely covered with that casting acrylic. And then the next piece will just be the base for the next one. And so I'm going to do that now. Like this one here, it's a smaller one, and I screwed it down here to this board so that you can do the same thing. And then this end's loose, so you can shim it, whatever you need with it. But it's pretty straightforward. So once you get your LEDs done, if you don't have one already, you start with this piece, cast one of these real quick, and then you don't have to do 2 at a time. I'm just making more for me, and then some for some friends, and I end up making a bunch of them at one time. So just to speed up the process, finish one, start the next one at the same time. Otherwise, just do a little bit, put a little piece in the bottom, get that out of there, and glue the next LEDs on the top of this, and then fill it in. So I'll do that now, and we'll check back in a minute. Okay, so we got the acrylic mixed up. It mixes just 1 to 1. They got some mixing cups in there. Just mix it all together and pour it into the cast here. So I got both the LEDs covered, and then a little bit there in the bottom of the second one, just like previously described. And you can see there, it's just about flat. You get a good picture of that, so that none of those LEDs are sticking up past the top of the casting acrylic. They're all completely encased, and there's some air bubbles in there still. It'll focus. Those air bubbles will mostly work their way out, but if they stay in there, it's no big deal. So now it's got about a 24-hour cure time. We'll peel it out of that mold, set it in the sun, let it cure for a couple more days, and then we'll put it in the sump. Check back then. Here it is the next day. It's about 14 hours later. It's cured enough that I can get it out of the mold now, so it's a little bit flexible still. So I'm just using a flathead screwdriver to get underneath it and pry it out. If you wait too long, it'll get real brittle. So just work it out of there. Comes off pretty easy. And then put it back outside under the sun, let it cure some more. So there it is a couple days later. Let the two-part casting acrylic cure fully, and got it there underneath the water in my sump. My sump's got 3 chambers in it. There's the return pump, and then this previously I was trying to use as a frag tank or frag section, and then I had the Refugium over here. But having the lights shine from the top down was causing me some algae problems inside my skimmer. You can see there's still coralline growing inside it from all the light that was shining on my skimmer. So I'm going to try to move it over, and doing the underwater lights gets the light out of the top hopefully, and then it won't reflect as much or spill as much light into my skimmer to make it grow algae. As well as I'm going to have a lot bigger section for frags as my tank's starting to mature. All these little pieces that are in here. I didn't cut any of those. My fish break those off, and I don't want to throw them away, and I don't really like frag tanks in the display, so I need a place to put them, and so I'm going to try to put them in here, maybe grow some out, and see if I can sell a few frags to cover some of the cost of this tank. But it's working pretty good. There's the 5-gallon bucket of Chaeto that I had grown previously off of. There's some lights above as well as the lights that were below, so I'm going to make a couple more, stick them in the bottom over here, and hopefully the Chaeto growing over the top of those lights will contain the light, as well as I put a lighting diffuser on both sides of that section to hopefully block or shield some of the light from growing algae in sections I don't want it to grow. So that's the purpose for doing it. It's also a very inexpensive light that grows algae really well. So thanks for taking the time to check it out.